So welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my chickens and how I look after them. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, you know what I'm going to say, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment and also my home kitchen. Today we're going to be focusing on the chickens, because I know a lot of people like keeping chickens, but they're not sure how to look after them, and they're also a little bit worried about bird flu and what they should do to protect their birds. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of roughly how I look after my chickens, and also I'm going to tell you a little bit more about bird flu to try and give you some hints and tips on how to best protect them. So we've got, my chickens are all out at the moment, or is one of them in there laying an egg? Well, I've got 4 chickens all together. And I think one of them's hiding at the moment. Maybe one of them's gone in to lay an egg or something. I've got 4 chickens at the moment. We've had chickens now for over 11 years, and I completely love having them. I love the idea of producing my own food, especially having my own eggs, and they're really lovely to have. All their little chirpy sounds and everything, it's really therapeutic. And I know a lot of people really worry about what the neighbours think, but I think mine actually quite like my chickens, and they like it all too as well, because sometimes they get free eggs as well, which is really awesome. If they've done something nice for us, we give them some eggs as a thank you. So I think that's also another misconception, that you just assume that your neighbours won't like you having chickens, but actually I think most people around here quite like the idea of it, and lots more people do have chickens. Now one of the main things is you obviously need a good run for them. Especially with the bird flu thing going around, because you need to keep your chickens secure away from the wild birds. So we've built ours. It looks a little bit makeshift, but it works really, really well. And we've made sure that it's fox proof around the sides, so it's either got concrete down each side, we've got a fence there and just naturally concrete there, and we've built things around it to protect it from predators. We've also got a wire top on it, and we actually got this before the bird flu thing came in. This was actually to keep foxes out, because we unfortunately had an instance where we lost one lot of chickens to foxes, which was really quite upsetting. So to make sure wherever you keep your chickens they are secure from foxes is really, really important, because you don't want to lose any of your birds to something like that. But to know when it does happen, it is nature, it might happen from time to time. And we feed our chickens a traditional layers pellet. You know, I hear of some people just giving them scraps and things, and that really doesn't give them all the right compounds that they need. So their bulk food is from layers pellets, and we do give them treats from time to time. I've got an allotment, so sometimes I give them a little bit of chard when I've got a surplus, or a little bit of kale or something like that. So they do get treats from time to time. But if I fed them just on things like that, they wouldn't get all the right nutrients, they wouldn't be healthy, and you know, the eggs could get soft. You know, when I've given them too many treats, I find that the eggshells get a little bit soft. So I do make sure I give them a proper compound of layers pellets. And obviously always access to fresh water all the time as well. So we have a little makeshift cover over our feeder, just so that when it rains the water doesn't all go into it, to stop it from going all soggy. So something else that we have, which is one of the best things we ever bought after we lost the chickens to foxes, someone suggested getting an automated hatch, which, as you can see just through there, is our automated hatch. It comes up in the morning to let them out automatically, and it goes down at night to automatically shut them in. They're very habitual creatures, so if you get the timing on it right, they'll be in there and the hatch will go down. So you just have to get that about right. It's a Titan hatch. We will put a link in the description for some of the things I'm mentioning if you haven't got these things and you'd like to look at them for yourself. It was one of the best investments we've ever made, and the only thing we've had to change on it is changing the string a few times where it goes up and down, and just the batteries. So it is absolutely fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. Something else is obviously looking after your birds and making sure that they're healthy. So every once in a while we order a layers pellet which has a worming treatment in it. And you feed it as per the instructions on there, and that is by far the most effective way we've found on keeping our chickens wormed. If they get worms, it can kill them. It really is very serious, and we tried using some other ways, some holistic ways, and you know what, they just weren't doing it. So we actually decided that we should actually buy the proper you know, the proper stuff to actually properly worm them. And honestly, it is really good, because they've been so much healthier, and ever since then we've never had a problem with worms whatsoever. So something we do, especially this time of year, and because of the risk of bird flu, and we don't let our chickens out during this time, and we get a bale of straw in there. And also, not just because of that, it can get quite muddy and icky in there, so we get a big bale of straw, and it obviously stops it from being so sticky and muddy, and they have so much fun with it as well. So you want to keep your chickens having fun, and you know in the summer you can put grass clippings in there, but in the winter there's nothing. It's really bare, and they can't go out because of the bird flu, and a bale of straw is something that gives them an immense amount of pleasure. We don't break it up ourselves, so we literally take the piece of string off and we put the whole bale in there, and they'll gradually spread it all around this run. Within a few days they'll have broken that all up. So all the bits that are broken around here now, they've done that, we've not done that. We just took the string off, and it's only been in there probably about an hour. So that's how much fun they get out of using it. So like I said, when you've got with bird flu, what you're trying to stop happening, if we move on to that part, is you don't want them mixing with wild birds, basically, because it's wild birds that have migrated over that potentially, only potentially, could have bird flu. So that's why wherever you keep your chickens, you mustn't let them out during this time, and they must stay in their secure run. We've also got wire over the top. Now, we already had this on here because of the foxes, but having a cover over it stops any wild birds from flying in to their run. And what the birds are doing, they'd be drinking out of, drinking the water, they'd be eating the food, they'd be mixing with the chickens, and potentially that's where problems could happen. So having a cover on the top is really, really essential, and making sure that, just like you do with foxes, you make sure there's no gaps that they can't get in. I found a gap around here earlier. I'm always regularly going round my run, making sure there's no holes, gaps, nothing's trying to burrow in, nothing could swoop in. And I found a little gap here, so some of the twine that I got off of the bale of straw when it came, really useful to keep these things. Use things like this for tying all sorts of things up at the allotment, but also for doing makeshift fixes on here. You can tie any holes together or push another little bit of wire through, we've done before, which is what we've done here. Just ways of making sure that basically nothing can get in, because the last thing you want is birds, or anything, for that matter, getting in and mixing and potentially harming your birds. Something else, a very unglamorous side of keeping chickens are rats and vermin. You always need to be mindful of rats and vermin, so always keep a check that you're not getting any rats or vermin in and around your run, and obviously taking appropriate action should that happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but from time to time you might get rats, so you do need to make sure you keep check of that as well. If you do find that you're getting it, taking your feeders in at night is a really good way of stopping it, because obviously they'll be feeding off of it during the night. So if you think you've got something like that, never leave your feeders out during the day. In fact, it's quite a good thing to bring them in anyway. So something else we've done, which we didn't do, and it was only because of the bird flu thing, is that we used to keep our the feeder underneath the house, away from the rain. But since the bird flu thing that's going around at the moment, you don't really want to be walking in and out of the run more than is necessary. So what we decided to do is to move the feeder and the water drinker closer to the door that we access our chickens from. So this is our door here, so we can basically reach in and reach out, so we don't actually have to walk in and walk out. The reason that you need to do that is because we're all walking around every day, everywhere, treading on things, and we could potentially tread on a bird dropping that's got for a bird that had bird flu. So if for any reason you do have to go into the run because you need to do something for the birds, or they've knocked something over, which happens, you'd be amazed what chickens can do with their feeder. It can go everywhere. 1 minute it's fine and it's upright, the next minute they've tipped everything over. You need to either put covers on the boots that you're wearing, or you need to disinfect your boots before you go in there, just in case you've got anything on there, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to take something in and contaminate their run. You want to keep them as healthy as you possibly can. Now, I get lots of people trying to be, obviously people do things with good intentions, messaging me about, am I looking after my birds, do I need to register them? You only need to register your birds if you have more than 50 in the UK. So if you've got less than 50 birds, you do not need to register them with DEFRA. You can if you want to, but you're not under any obligation to, and I personally don't. If you're ever unsure about any of your obligations about looking after your birds, there is a whole load of stuff on the DEFRA website that you can go through, which we regularly check through, or as I should say, my cameraman regularly checks through, my husband, to make sure that there isn't anything new that we should be doing that we're not doing, or anything that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. So something else that we do, now this is just the way our house was put together, so if you've not got chickens already, it's worth thinking about. Oh, before I moved onto that, we're not feeding our birds in our back garden anymore because of the wild birds, potentially. Because our feeders are so close to our chickens, we're just a little bit worried about the wild birds being too close. We don't want to encourage them too much into it. You're still going to get some in the garden, but we're now feeding them out the front rather than feeding them in our back garden, just as an added precaution. It's fine for other people to be feeding the birds in their garden, but just because we've got our chickens right on top of, right next to it, it's just a little bit too close for comfort for us. And something else, if you've not got chickens, or any way you can change it, is the way you access your eggs as well. So if we swiftly move round, like I said, you want to avoid going into the house as much as possible. So, you know, there are going to be times when you will have to go in there for something. Maybe, like I said, if they've tipped something over or done something daft in there and you need to sort it out. We access our eggs from the outside. So when my husband built this, he purposely did it just so it made life easier, so that we get our eggs from the outside, so we don't have to go in and get them. So let's just see if we've got anything in there today. You never know. Some days I get nothing, so I warn you now. Other days I can get 2 to 3 eggs. It literally does all depend. You know, they're not robots, they are, you know, live creatures. And what have we got in here? Oh yeah, we've got one here, so that's brilliant. There we go. And what have we got in this one? You know, like I say, we don't always get something. Ah, brilliant. Oh, good girls, look at that. Well, we can't grumble at that, can we? Look, 3 lovely eggs. How fantastic is that? There you go. So even though we're in January and it's quite cold, and I wouldn't necessarily expect them to really lay that much. Sometimes they are more sporadic during the winter, and because they're a couple of years old, they're going to be more sporadic than young birds are, but they're doing really brilliantly. I've got to say, they're the best birds I've ever had. They are really doing well. Aren't you, girls? Well done. Well done. Thank you very much for the lovely eggs, chickens. Now, I do hope you've enjoyed watching the video. I hope it's given you some ideas on how to keep chickens, how to look after chickens. As always, I'd love to hear what chickens you've got, how long you've had chickens, any interesting facts about your chickens. That would be really awesome. And if you've got any questions or queries and you're not sure about anything, please obviously do put something in the comments and we'll do our best to help you. And give us a like if you've enjoyed watching it, and if you've not already subscribed, it'd be really awesome if you could do that too.